Today we're going to talk about grounding. This is probably the most important thing you will need to take out of this course. Now, what is it? It's basically any sort of connection to the earth. You could do this barefoot touching the earth. You could do this through any sort of conductive material. How do we think about grounding? Like, what does it even do? You could kind of think about it like an antioxidant, but way better. So how do antioxidants actually work? We have these things called free radicals, and they basically attack our cells. And when these free radicals build up, it causes oxidative stress, which basically kills our cells or makes them function a lot less. Now, antioxidants basically give electrons to these free radicals to neutralize them. So you could kind of think of antioxidants as electron donors that balance these free radicals. And the crazy thing about the earth is that it has infinite electrons. And as soon as you touch it with your bare hands or feet, these electrons skyrocket through your body. And free radicals are the hallmark of chronic inflammation. Countering this is gonna deal with a lot of your problems already. The second thing this does is syncs us to the earth's natural cycles. So the earth has natural DC cycles that vary throughout the day. There were people who were kept in bunkers without any sunlight, and if they were grounded, they could keep their circadian rhythm. If they weren't grounded, they were donezo. And this direct current that the earth uses, humans and animals use to function. Everything from our beating heart, the movement of our muscles, our brain's ability to think, it all operates using DC energy. All this artificial stuff like light bulbs, wireless, everything we've talked about so far operates on AC electricity. So right away, this is the inflammation after 30 minutes of grounding. The red signifies heat. Heat is a sign of inflammation. After 30 minutes, look at that difference. But let's say antioxidants could do this too, right? So why is grounding better than antioxidants? Well, dietary antioxidants, they flow through the blood. And this means it can be blocked from entering certain areas of your body by scar tissue. So this means it can't always reach where it needs to reach. And this could cause incomplete healing. And incomplete healing leads to chronic inflammation. But electrons can travel anywhere in the body through grounding. They don't go through your bloodstream. A prime example of this was this diabetic lady. This is her before. She had this cut on her foot, and this is 8 months of healing. And then they made her ground for 2 weeks, and the wound started healing. This is because the electrons were not able to pass through that inflammatory barricade or scar tissue. And what else does it do in the blood? This is insane. So grounding also reduces blood viscosity. This is one of the biggest things for heart disease. Look at the before grounding. Those are all blood cells, all clumped up. On the right is after 40 minutes of grounding. The blood cells actually repel each other with something called the zeta charge, and it unclumps your blood cells. It makes your blood flow smoother and faster. And we're just getting started here. And look at the decrease in blood pressure, an average 15% decrease over 4 days only. It also reduces pain. Like, look at some of these differences. Grounding also normalizes your cortisol. It doesn't completely nuke it. It doesn't send it sky high, it sends it where it needs to be. Now, these images are something called Cushing syndrome, and this is like when you have cortisol overload. And we see a lot of people with almost subclinical levels of this. We have a lot of visceral gut fat. We have these fat red cheeks, thinning hair, stretch marks. This is all a sign of excess cortisol. And grounding normalizes this level to where it needs to be. This has to do with our circadian health. We want our cortisol highest in the morning at 8 a.m. here specifically. This is in order to wake us up, to get us ready to eat and get our day started. We don't want high cortisol at night. And grounding throughout the day makes your cortisol secretions normal. It will improve your circadian rhythm. Another thing that grounding does is that it increases your metabolism. The way you could think about people with high metabolisms is those people who eat any garbage they want and they somehow stay skinny the whole time. This is because they just burn through it. Their metabolism is so high, they could use that energy fast. And I could keep going on about the benefits. It's actually ridiculous how many benefits this has. But you could just read some of them here, like it improves circulation, improves blood oxygen, digestion, stress, even for osteoporosis, all this stuff gets helped with grounding. Imagine how healthy you would be if you didn't think this stuff was pseudoscience. And here's just some interesting correlations. This diabetes correlates extremely well with the rise of rubber soles. Now, why do rubber soles matter is because they are insulating. They do not connect you with the ground. Before, 95% of the shoes were made out of leather, and leather is conductive, so it lets those electrons pass through the leather into your body, and you receive all those benefits we talked about earlier. So what are the grounding surfaces? What can we actually connect to in order to receive these benefits? First is grass, sand, soil, rocks, unsealed tiles or bricks, concrete, bodies of water like oceans, lakes, and streams. These are going to be the best, and we're going to talk about why. Living trees from the earth and living plants from the earth. When you're talking about grounding, wet will always give you more DC energy than dry. So dry sand doesn't ground you very much, but wet sand will ground you a lot, and you will get the best grounding in a body of water. So how can you kind of implement this? Going outside in the morning dew that rests over the grass, that's gonna give you more grounding than in the evening. If you're in a super dry place, you could literally water the ground and then stand on it, and you will get more DC energy. So now let's talk about grounding mats. What's the big deal with this? I wish it was simple. You just plug it into your wall and you get the benefits, but there is a little bit of nuance here. So usually when you're grounding, you're doing it inside, and we just talked about all those electric fields that can be present within the home, and those are all AC. And then we just talked about the benefits of DC. So you're gonna think about whether the benefits of the DC energy is gonna outweigh the harms of the AC energy that we just talked about. Now, how do AC and DC interact when you start using a grounding mat? This human Faraday cage effect has been portrayed in a lot of grounding things, and I just don't think this is how it works. I wish it was. And that's because you're a conductive being. We already know that AC electric fields want to seek the lowest voltage potential, so they travel through the human. So how can we kind of simplify that a little more? Why do birds sit on wires and they don't get electrocuted? It's because the bird is not grounded. It's not completing this circuit of electricity. But if energy is flowing through and then a human touches it and the human is grounded, the energy will flow through that human, complete the circuit, and in this case, the human will get shocked. Now, if we're thinking about AC fields in your area, those AC fields are always looking for the lowest potential. And if you're the lowest voltage potential in your room, they're gonna go through you into the ground. Now you're fighting the DC benefits against the AC detriments. That's the first scenario you gotta think about when you're using a grounding mat indoors. The second scenario is whether you have dirty electricity on the ground wires. So if you have dirty electricity running through your ground in your apartment and you plug it in and then you stand on the mat, that dirty electricity is AC, so it's gonna flow both ways up into your body. So what's the measurement with this? Do you feel better or worse when you use a grounding mat? If you use your grounding mat and you're like, oh, I didn't get good sleep, or I feel worse, or now I'm feeling more stressed, I wouldn't consider it a detox reaction or anything you might read on the internet. Your electromagnetic environment is probably bad. So again, you're weighing the DC versus the AC. These are two separate things. The DC will give you benefits. The AC might be detrimental to your health, and you got to see how you feel. So what are the best locations to ground? So a good environment is a clean electrical indoor environment. So there's no dirty electricity on the ground wire and minimal AC. The DC energy benefits will probably outweigh the AC energy detriments. A better option is a shielded indoor environment. So a shielded environment is basically where the walls, the floor, they all have a lower voltage potential than you would. So the AC in the room, the dirty electricity, it would go through the walls into the ground rather than you. But shielding can get expensive, and this is something you would want to do if you own your home. The best way to do it is in nature, away from electricity, and you should be doing it this way. The very best, not an option for everybody, is the ocean. Now, you don't really need a grounding mat to ground. Anything that has 3 prongs is going to be connected to the DC energy. Whereas 2 prongs, you want to get rid of everything 2-pronged in your house because it is not grounded. And you could really receive DC energy from anything with 3 prongs, like even a toaster. If you plug it in with 3 prongs and your grounding wire works, you could touch the toaster and technically be grounded. But one of the benefits to grounding mats is they have resistors. If lightning strikes near you, that resistor is going to stop that electricity from coming into the grounding mat, and it also lowers the dirty electricity. But on the other hand, it lowers the amount of DC energy you get from the earth, so it kind of resists both ways. Now, I hope to get this through your mind. Grounding outdoors will always be better than grounding indoors. Whenever you can, always choose to go outside, over choosing a grounding mat. Even if it's just 10 minutes, you get those unclumping blood benefits from only 10 minutes. Now, why am I emphasizing outdoors so much? This is about lifestyle change. This isn't about just biohacking your way, thinking you're smarter than nature. Fat people live indoors, skinny people live outside. It's that simple. And when we're talking about going outdoors for grounding, we get into this idea of habit stacking. On the left, we have some people hiking. They're getting movement, they're getting light, they could be getting grounded, and they're with their friend. They're developing their relationships. Same thing like going to a cafe. You're getting your light, you're getting your food, you're developing your relationships. And then on the right, they're on the staircase, they're getting their light, they're getting their food, they're getting their relationships, they're getting grounding. You have to start thinking about all the habits, all the things we talk about in this whole course, and how you could stack them, especially if you're a busy person and your excuse is you don't have time. Now we're kind of getting more into this habit stacking because a lot of excuses come up in the winter. It's cold, it's this, there's no sun in the winter. I'll actually have you know that red light is present pretty much at the same amounts. It goes through the clouds and it has great benefits. Like natural light is energy promoting. It reduces your appetite. It gives you a high baseline dopamine, so you're actually excited about life. Whereas these artificial lights, which are all the lights, unless you followed my light guide, they're all gonna be blue lights. And these are gonna be killing your dopamine. They're gonna cause food cravings through the blue light, everything we covered in the light course. So what can you do in the winter? You could maintain a clear patch. You could also wear socks. You could use wool, cotton, or leather. It has to be a natural material. The thinner the better, and the wetter the sock is, the better. The more DC energy you will get. The other thing you could do is use your hands. Fingerless gloves. You can ground using any part of your body. It doesn't just have to be your feet. So you could touch a tree or something. Or inside, faucets are actually grounded a lot of the time. These metal objects, if you're sitting on a metal bench, it's going to be grounded. Another thing you could do is conductive clothing. You could get conductive hiking boots or shoes. There's a lot of options. But remember, if you're putting on a conductive hiking boot, you don't want to put on a polyester sock or something that will cut that connection to your actual foot. And then you could do these DIY devices. You want to use your imagination. Like you could use grounding tape outside of your shoe. That way you're grounding every time you're in your normal shoe. You could have like a copper wire attached to a ring and you could plug that copper wire into the ground. That way you just have a ring on your finger and you're gaining that DC energy. You want to get creative, but if you're kind of sleeping, if you're just leaving this thing plugged in, you'll want to add your own resistor so you don't get any sort of lightning shocks or any fires. So how long do we want to ground? That is the question. I want you guys to do a minimum of 30 minutes a day. Even if that means you're scrolling on your phone, you're answering emails, do it in the park. Do it with your feet, barefoot on the ground. Make sure there is no power lines nearby. There are no subway stations under the park you're at. No power boxes nearby, because that means there could be dirty electricity running under the ground. And with most of this stuff, you're gonna wanna be like 200 meters away from these sources. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, let me know. But grounding is going to be your superpower, especially when it comes to weight loss.